Hey y'all, it's Caitlyn, and my pronouns are she, her. As you can see, I kind of already started on it because the craft is not the main focus of this video. I am going to be making these little heart keychains out of Homer clay, and I'm going to be painting each of them as a pride flag. Let me just go through the steps really quickly that I'm doing here. As you can see, I'm rolling them out. I taped 2 popsicle sticks together, and I'm using that as a base so that I know it gets to the point where my roller is on top. This is as thick as those, so it's a nice little trick. Next part, some plastic wrap. As you put the plastic wrap over it, it makes this little curve. So you can see here it's a very sharp hard line, and this one's a curved line, so that's what I want. What I'm going to be doing now is taking each of the hearts, and you can see some of them, like that's a crease from the cookie cutter, so I'm just going to go through all of them, try to get most, if not all, of the imperfections out. And then what I'm going to do, I got some little jump rings, so I'm actually going to be inserting them into the clay prior to baking, because these things are just metal. They should be fine in the oven. I'm going to attach them with some Sculpey clay. Instead of just sitting here and telling you guys, okay guys, I did the red stripe, now I'm gonna go on to orange. I mean, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I'm gonna do a voiceover, and I'm gonna talk about each flag and why each flag is important.
Okay, let's start with the most familiar flag of them all, the one that everyone recognizes, and that is the rainbow flag. While it was originally meant to represent people who were homosexual, people who were in same-sex relationships, or those who were simply attracted to the same sex, it has become an umbrella flag for the entire LGBTQ community. It was originally commissioned by Harvey Milk, who was the first openly gay man to be elected into a public office in California. He commissioned his friend Gilbert Baker. The flag first flew in the San Francisco Gay Freedom Day Parade, June 25th, 1978. Later that same year, that Milk was assassinated. And as a side note, his murderer was acquitted. Baker designed an 8-striped flag to be flown during the parade in 1987. Each a different color, each representing something different. Pink for sex, red for life, orange for healing, yellow for sunlight, green for nature, turquoise for magic, blue or indigo for serenity, and violet for spirit. After Milk's assassination, every gay person, LGBTQ person, wanted one of these flags, not only to take action, but to honor the man who had it created. The flag became in such high demand, they dropped the pink basically just due to high costs of manufacturing it. The turquoise was dropped only a year later, in 1979, to make the stripes even. They wanted to decorate the area where the next Pride Parade was going to be, and they simply wanted an even number of colors so that it would look prettier. So sex and magic was taken off, and I find that very interesting because a lot of people talk about how the flag represents sex, it represents a sexuality. And a lot of people are upset about that. Even people who are allies of the community are upset about that because they don't want the flag to be shown in schools or in neighborhoods, anywhere where younger children can see them. But they have to understand, sex and sexuality are two different things. Children are exposed to sexuality all the time. In fact, let me just say this. If you are someone who believes this, that the rainbow flag should not be shown to children, let me ask you these questions. Has your child ever seen a Disney movie where the princess and the prince live happily ever after? Have they ever heard a love song on the radio? Have they ever seen their mother and father kiss? If you answered yes to any of these questions, which I imagine everyone who is a parent has, your child's been exposed to a sexuality. Straight. Straight is a sexuality. Heterosexuality is a sexuality. But for some reason, it only becomes a problem when it's homosexuality. Lesbian is defined as a woman who is sexually attracted to another woman. The original lesbian flag was created in 1999 by Sean Campbell, and it looked like this. The Labrys, which is the weapon featured here, the double-sided axe, was a symbol of empowerment in the 70s for the lesbian community. It came from back in the Amazon era, the Amazon myths and Greek mythology. The black triangle came from the symbols that the Nazis would put on some women, including lesbians, in concentration camps. Just like how the pink triangle was put on the gay men. Later on, after the war and after the end of the Nazi reign, those symbols were reclaimed by the LGBTQ community, which is why if you see a lot of older pride parades from like the 70s, clips of it, a lot of them are holding up signs with pink and black triangles on it, reclaiming those as symbols of empowerment. The violet in the background is actually for Sappho. She was a poet in ancient Greek from the island of Lesbos, which is actually where the term lesbians comes from. She was very much known for her works in lesbian poetry. Later on, in 2010, the lipstick lesbian flag was created. This was meant to represent those that were more feminine. The original one mostly represented the butch lesbians, but this flag represented more for the femme lesbians, which is why it's mostly red and pink. Eventually, the lipstick print was removed, and then in 2018, by Emily Gwen on Tumblr, redesigned the flag to include butch. It was a 7-color flag, later condensed to 5. The dark orange represented gender nonconformity, so butch. Orange represented independence. White represented unique relations to womanhood. Pink represents serenity and peace, and dark pink, femininity. Now, while most people still recognize the rainbow flag as just, again, the umbrella for the gay community, especially for gay men have had their own flags as well. But actually, there's very little to be found about it. It was actually really hard for me to figure out where the design of the modern flag came from. In 1995, however, the Bear Brotherhood flag was created by Craig Bimes, and it looked like this. The color, it was very masculine. It was meant to be very masculine. Bears are the nickname for gay men who are very masculine. The colors represented the animal that it was named for, all different colors of typical bear species. Now, this flag excluded trans men, but included bisexual men. However, the current flag does include trans men. It was created on July 10th in 2019 by Tumblr user Gay Flag Blog, a flag just for the gay men in the community, again, including trans. There was controversy over this due to there was no meaning behind the colors listed. Recently, it's grown more popular, and it's also been condensed to a 5-stripe design. I just used the original 7 in my design. Another controversy that came was from people thinking that it was anti-lesbian, which I personally, as a lesbian, I don't understand. We have our own flags, and again, the rainbow is the umbrella. It represents all of us. So yeah, I think it makes sense that they have their own flag. Bisexuality is the sexual attraction to two genders, typically both male and female. The flag was created in 1998 by Michael Page. The pink stood for the attraction to the same sex, blue stood for attraction to the opposite sex, and purple was the overlap of attraction to both. Unfortunately, bisexuals have in the past been outcasts to the gay community and the straight community at that, both not understanding how they just can't choose between the two. I think anyone can tell you in the LGBTQ community it's not a choice. Some people think that they should not be bisexual any longer once they are in a long-term relationship, which is just crazy. Once you're married, you don't become less straight. You don't become less gay if you're married. Why would you become less bisexual? Transgender is defined as someone who was born in the wrong body. They identify with the opposite sex of what they were born with. If you were assigned female at birth, but you identify as a man, then you're trans, or vice versa. The trans flag was created in 1999 by Monica Helms. The pink and blue represent the colors traditionally associated with babies. When babies are born, they either get a little pink blanket or a little blue blanket. And the white is for those transitioning Several other designs throughout the world come into existence. The Israeli flag and the Andrew flag seen here, just to name a couple. It's actually kind of remarkable seeing just how many different cultures have different symbols for trans. I honestly think that's really, really awesome. Now, I'm not trying to make this necessarily a politically charged video. I'm making this more for just pure education, honestly. But that being said, I will take the time in this video to say to all the trans folk out there and all the, people who identify outside binary, you are valid no matter what. You're beautiful. You are worthy of love. There are many countries around the world who celebrate trans people. There are many countries in the world who hate all kinds of LGBTQ people, and I really don't want to see my country go down that path. Again, not trying to be politically charged, but if you care at all about the stuff I'm talking about in this video, please keep this in mind next election day and know which people are fighting for the health of not just trans folk, but trans kids. In order to talk about non-binary, we kind of have to talk about genderqueer first. So genderqueer is defined in the dictionary by denoting or relating to a person who does not subscribe to conventional gender distinctions, but identifies with neither, both, or a combination of male and female gender. Non-binary are people who do not identify solely male or female, but somewhere in between. They exist outside of the binary. Now, the reason that I say this is because the genderqueer flag came first in 2010, created by Marilyn Roxy. Now, this flag was including the non-binary community. However, in 2014, Kyle Rowan created the non-binary flag not to challenge or oppose genderqueer, but to exist alongside it. Again, it was just another community wanting their own identity, similar to the gay men flag. They just wanted a symbol that was fully their own to empower. The yellow of the flag stands for the people who identify outside of the binary. White stands for multigender people. The purple is for people who have a blended gender, and the black are for those who have no gender. Gender is a spectrum. And a lot of people don't understand why most people want to use they them pronouns or a mix of pronouns. There's various different pronouns. They them is one of the more common ones for non-binary. People don't understand it because they is usually meant in plural terms. But I want you to think about something. Say you have a new coworker coming in. You don't know anything about them. You just know that it's a new coworker. You don't know if it's a he or a she. So chances are you're going to use the word they when you're talking about them. We use it in single terms a lot. When you're trying to hide a person's identity, sometimes you'll use the word they instead of saying he or she in a conversation. A lot of children pick it up very, very quickly. It's not some weird thing that they have to cope with. A lot of people think it's like a weird transition for them, and it's not. And again, any form of gender identification is valid. Gender queer, agender, gender fluid, the list goes on and on. But everyone is valid, and everyone knows their own identity better than their neighbor does. Pansexual are people who have sexuality regardless of gender. They don't take the person's gender into account when being attracted to them. Gender does not matter to them at all. Now, there's no exact date of when the pansexual flag was created, but it was in the early 2010s by Jasper V. The pink was for attraction to women, the yellow for attraction for non-binary, and cyan for attraction to men. Someone mentioned to me recently, they never heard of pansexual as a child, or, as they were growing up. The Gen X community was teenagers and young adults. You had the word straight, you had the word gay. So why are these terms all coming up now? Because people are finally speaking out and listening to others as they talk. People are finding out that they're not the only ones that feel a certain way, and a community is being formed. Intersex is defined as a person who has biological markers of both sexes. So there are people who are born with both male and female genitals, and even some are much less obvious at birth. There are some men who are born with ovaries, there are some women who are born with testes, there are men who are born with double X chromosomes, there are women born with XY chromosomes. The flag here was created by Morgan Carpenter in 2013. The yellow and purple were chosen because they have no ties to gender. It's not like pink or blue. And the circle, and this is a quote, it means unbroken and unornamented, symbolizing wholeness and completeness and our potentiality. What's interesting about the injustice that is going on in the intersex community. So, if someone is trans, meaning they want to transition from one gender biologically to the next, to have physical characteristics of the opposite gender, there are laws that are being passed to stop them from doing. Freedoms are being taken away, and they no longer have that choice. And one of the main arguments is that they're born this way, so why should they want to change it? If a baby is born intersex and they notice it right away, the first recommendation that a doctor will give you is to put them under a operation to quote unquote correct the way that they were born. It's because it goes out of that binary. There are people who feel like they were robbed of their identity. They took a person's whole identity and just decided it for them. And to have your child go under an unnecessary operation at such a young age. I understand there are some minor surgeries that people do for religious purposes or what have you. There's no other reason why they're doing this other than because it needs to fit in our boundaries. Use an argument to justify genocide, essentially, to one community, yet we show just how hypocritical we are by forcing another kid to go through gender affirmative care. Asexual, now the hardcore definition of asexual are people who have no sexual attraction. However, there is some fluency to this. Sexual attraction, romantic attraction, they're all spectrums. There are people who are completely sex repulsed. There are people who are gray asexual, meaning they do experience sexual attraction, but just very, very rarely. It is a spectrum. The asexual flag was created by the Asexual Visibility Education Network, or AVEN, which was founded by David J. in 2001. The group actually voted on this design. The black stood for ACE, which is short for asexual. The gray is for gray asexual. The white is for allosexuality, and the purple is for community. For those who don't know what the word allosexual means, it means for those who do experience sexual attraction to others. Because again, it is a fluidity, the ACE spectrum. And some people who are asexual do have partners who are allosexual. Sometimes they themselves experience. Unfortunately, ACE is very much still an outcast, even more so than other sexualities we've talked about previously. Some people are genuinely confused why they don't experience crushes or attraction the way that other people do. There have been some sex ed courses in high school that have even named asexual a sickness, an illness, a mental illness. People have different sex drives. Some people have high sex drives, some people have low sex drives, some people have no sex drives. And again, that's perfectly okay. So to anyone out there who considers themselves ace or anything under the ace spectrum, please know that you are just as valid as the rest of us. And I, for one, welcome you to the LGBTQ community. Last but not least, we have demisexual. Now, you'll notice that the demisexual flag looks very, very close to the asexual flag, and that's because demisexual is a part of the ace community. The term was coined in 2006, and basically it means you have emotion before you have attraction. In other words, you start to develop feelings for a person, romantic feelings, before you find yourself sexually attracted to them. The black stands for it being umbrellaed by the ace community. The white stands for sexuality. The purple and the gray are the same as in the asexual flag. So purple for community and gray for asexual. And again, they're kind of fighting the same battle as the ace community is. And again, to anyone who has a sexuality that is not considered the norm, like gay or straight, you're very much valid. So, for everyone who's made it through to the end of this video, I thank you. And hopefully you learned a little something about some of the struggles that members of the LGBTQ community face and some of the injustices we face. And some of our history. This is just the tip of the iceberg. The flags are just the tip of the iceberg. And know that there are many, many other flags and labels out there that many other people identify with. These were just the 10 that I chose to feature. And also, there are plenty of queer people who choose not to have labels. They don't like the idea of having labels, and that's perfectly fine too. Everyone is valid in their own identity. It doesn't matter who or what you are. You are a human and you are valid. And if you're someone who's wanting to look more into any of these subjects or any of the histories, I encourage you to do so. If you have any questions, please ask. If I don't know, I will help you research it. I love that people take initiative to educate themselves or ask questions about these kind of things. I will never look down on someone for being unknowledgeable about the LGBTQ community. I don't think anyone should look down on someone else for not having the knowledge of the LGBTQ community. But I think everyone should step up to try to educate themselves on it, even if it's just a little bit, to make it so that you understand our struggle just a little bit more. Including people within the LGBTQ community, there's still a lot of things that we still need to learn from each other. And we just have to reach out our hands and open our minds to learn about these things. I hope and I pray that everyone has a happy, safe, blessed Pride Month. And please reach out to any friends or family members who are LGBTQ and just wish them a happy Pride Month. It's something simple, but it goes a long way. It'll make a person smile, I can promise you. So, again, thank you all so much for watching, and remember, it's a community, not a competition. I'll see y'all later. Bye.